Hey everyone, Sly47 here. I've got a video kind of giving you my thoughts on all of the current tech tree lines as of this moment, as of this video going up. I am pre-recording this a week early just because I am going to a wedding and I'm betting I'm going to want to get my life in line, and I'm going to probably be streaming the day before this video going up, but I would rather have this video recorded and not be stressed under time and making you crap content. So of course, hopefully y'all understand. So, but first, let's all just take a moment, breathe in, and think of all the Smolens that have died from fire. It's a nice thought, isn't it? It's a really nice thought. All right, let's get into it. So, we're actually going to start on a high note, which I'm actually quite surprised on, is the American lines. Realistically, when you look at the American DD lines, the gearing, really a very solid line. They kind of haven't aged well, but they're not bad either. I stopped at the Fletcher just because I think at the time I was mostly grinding a bunch of cruisers, wasn't really vibing with me. Probably will go back to it and get the gearing. Gearing really is a solid ship. It does a good amount of damage, but I do feel like people play it either too aggressive or too passively. It's really that middle of the road DD. So if you're trying to learn how to do torps and gun at the exact same time, it's not a bad line to go up. I have heard some people Mahan is the end point or Benson's the end point, but with the Hessiang, the Benson's kind of overshadowed. But realistically, they're really solid. I really wouldn't argue with that. I really wouldn't argue going up all the entire line. Enjoy it. Obviously, as you can tell, Des Moines and Worcester line, they are both amazing lines to grind. Like overall, they do their purpose. Is their purpose always available in a game? No, not really. Des Moines, I'd say it's less worth it than the Worcester line, just because Worcester, it's AA Gobert. Um, it absolutely can wreck carriers. It can destroy DDs. In my opinion, at the very least, on the Worcester line, get the Cleveland. It's an amazing tier 8. Does it all. Radar, sonar, AA, guns, fire, AP, decent armor. You can't argue with it. Cleveland's a great thing. Seattle's a bit rougher, but at the same time, not too bad. And Worcester is just the culmination of everything, so it works out. Des Moines, I have heard some people say that the Pensacola is kind of the best part of the line, but I wouldn't blame you if you just keep on going because Des Moines is super powerful, though less worth than the Worcester. Vermont, basically the best of the best. I think it's at this current time, very powerful line. Kansas, I'm enjoying the grind. I hate the reload. I feel like I can make dinner in between, but whatever. Minnesota, I heard, is kind of iffy. Vermont is basically slapping everyone across the face. It's amazing. I would definitely suggest on going up that line. Montana line, of course. North Carolina is actually the runt of the family. Colorado's not bad. North Carolina's rough. Iowa, pretty good. Montana, very solid ship, very playable in this meta, and it's a good one. And of course, the ship in behind the Midway, if you like carriers, it's a good one. Like, there's only really two. Maybe by this time we might start seeing the beginning of the British CVs, but I don't know about them yet. So let's go on the Japanese line on this. A lot more lines on this, a lot harder to choose and a lot harder to go. Harugumo, it's kind of a troll ship. Like, everything past the Shiratsuyu, the Akazuki, the Kitakazi, and the Harugumo are kind of trolly. They're huge boats with a lot of guns, and they hit the target a bunch with like death by 1,000 cuts. That's kind of it. I know that. I don't know. If you want to have a death by 1,000 cuts and have some fun with that, Harugumo's a line for you. But really, they don't do much else. Going on the next line, Shima. It's the Shima. You want to blap a ship with a bunch of torpedoes? Good on you. That's the Shima's for you. It's got a long reload on the torps and crappy guns. But personally, to me, not exactly a big fan of torp boats. Get the Akazuki. It's a really well balanced tier 7, in my opinion. Akazuki lands really a lot of torpedoes, decent guns, great setup. I really feel like that's a great place to end too if you're kind of not really truly into it. And at tier 7, the torpedoes just wreck shop, and the guns can do so much on other DDs at that tier. It really is an ultimate package, but if you want to go further, might as well go all the way to the Shima. So Zhao. Uh, just made a recent video on the Takao. Either if you're like having a tough time with the Miyoko, you might like the Takao better. But if you had a tough time with the Miyoko, I would maybe suggest stopping. Zhao is very team comp dependent, so that means that basically if you have a carrier on the enemy team, you get shut down. You have too many DDs on the enemy team, you get shut down. You have too many battleships on the enemy team, but you have a carrier on the enemy team, you get shut down. It's sometimes you really have to chuck it down to you died in the Zhao because of external factors you can't control. I love it because it's my first tier 10, but I understand it's not the best either. Yamato, it's Yamato. Go all the way up the line. For me, battleships just aren't always my thing. So if battleships are your thing, it's the Yamato. Do I need to explain anything more? No, I don't. On to the British lines, specifically with the Daring, the British DD line. You're going to get different opinions on which one to go on. I would say go to the Jervis at the very least if you're a DD player. Enjoy it. It's an amazing DD. Lightning is a very hit or miss depending on the player, but the Jutland and Daring, I've heard good things. I've never heard really bad things about them. This entire line's incredibly maneuverable with single fire torpedoes. You can do a lot with it, but it does take a little bit of skill to take it on. So take it with a grain of salt. Try to figure out if that's what you want. At least the Jervis is a lot of fun. But on to, realistically, I'd say one of the highest skill cruisers. You need to know Minotaur, the entire line, just keeps on getting better and better. It teaches you how to play every single one better and better and better. So to me, you learn it throughout, but I would, before you go into it, try to learn where to shoot AP with other ships, and that might really help. Get good at the Minotaur because it's an only AP cruiser line with really good torpedoes. It's a tough one, but at the same time, realistically, if you are a skilled player, you can make the Minotaur work really well. Next thing, Goliath line. I've heard stop at the Alabama Marie. I'm gonna say don't touch it until they buff it. The Goliath is really rough. Drake's super rough from what I've played on my CC account and also from what I've heard from everyone. A few people say Surrey and Alabama Marie aren't too bad, but I can probably name off half dozen cruisers that are better than both of them at those tiers. And then a bunch of battleships that will just annihilate them with no due process. So, yeah, I would highly suggest if you are really wanting a fire starting heavy cruiser, go to the Alabama Marie or the Surrey, see which one you like better. Else, just don't touch the line until they buff it. Conqueror, Monarch really is still, even after the buffs on a few on this line, Monarch I think is still the cream of the crop of the line. It's an amazing ship. I'm waiting for the Black Monarch to come out on sale, but pretty much Lion is a tough grind. You will hear some people that they liked it, but Conqueror has received some buff. It's good from what I've heard. That's all I've heard. So take it as you wish. British CVs are coming out soon. They may or may not be worth it. Yeah. Next up in bat is the German lines. So the German DDs, I'm actually going up them right now. I'm enjoying them, but I really would say they're kind of that mediocre / power creep area. Their AP is phenomenal. Their torps are long range, but they're incredibly slow. They are good DD hunters, but you could say there's other ships that do better torps and still handle that anti-DD role. I think they're good, but I think also like that the tier 8 and 9 grind with the most of the guns in the back kind of a little tougher. I'm waiting for the Z52 because I have always heard it's really good, but you don't see too many of them out. So take that as it is. Hindenburg grind. Stop when you've got the Königsberg or the Nuremberg. Just stop. Just enjoy those. Enjoy their perfections, their torpedoes, their guns, their just everything, because the York, Admiral Hipper, and Ruin will destroy your inner soul. And then the Hindenburg will be like, oh, you wanted a cherry? Well, I'm rotten from all the way through. It was such a rough grind. I would not suggest it to the worst people I know. Maybe not my enemies, but my worst people I know. It's a tough grind. Hindenburg's a tough sell. I would highly suggest against it. Stop at the tier 6, enjoy it, and wait till they get some buffs to these 3 ships. Specifically, Hindenburg just really needs a range buff. It's not that hard to make it worth it. So on to the Guberkurfürst line. For me, Gneisenau is really the best. Bayern's right, not too far behind it. Gneisenau is just a really great like super cruiser, super battle cruiser type thing. I enjoy its play style. Bismarck's okay. I kind of stopped. I didn't really enjoy the battleship grind at the time. They have recently all got the secondary overload skill, but because you don't have any commander skills to increase its capabilities, I think realistically they're all kind of mediocre at this time. The only time I'm ever really scared of any of these ships is when I'm in a DD and I'm getting somewhat close. Else, they're okay. They do well. Not really that crazy. So if you like those, actually, let me just quickly make sure you can see them. Boom. You can actually see. Yeah. So I would, if you want to, and if you like the play style with the secondaries, you can, but I really wouldn't fully suggest it. On to the Russians. They actually do something very nice for you. It's kind of a fun one. So Russian DD lines, you stop at tier 9 and you play the better ship because the tier 9s are better than the tier 10s pretty much in all aspects. So Kiev just is a smaller profile with just as good guns as the Khabarovsk. I I would highly suggest to stop in the Kiev. The Udaloy has more torpedoes, just generally a better setup than the Grozavoy. So, you'll eventually unlock the tier 10s, but just stop fretting at tier 9 and consider them the end of the line. And eventually, for me, I eventually all of a sudden I was like playing the Kiev, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I've got 420 something thousand experience. Let me just unlock the Kiev for no good reason. And eventually I had enough credits to buy it. And it is what I expected. So understand that. Kiev, Udaloy, basically the top of the line. Nevsky, this is a great fire starting line all the way up. Donskoy is a bit of an AP monster instead of an HE monster due to the reload, but overall, really, it's a great line to go up completely fine. Pietro makes this really easy. You don't even need to go up it. Saves you all that much time. They really need to buff it. I know they really do. And then Kremlin, just to kind of show you exactly where it is, I've heard stop at the Sinop or Vladivostok. But also I've heard just completely ignore the line too, just like the Pietro line. So that's very nice of them, right? Makes it short and quick. Hopefully that saves you some time if you're grinding them right now. If you're like, hey, this is painful. Why is this so painful? Just stop. Just stop. Hopefully they'll buff it soon. PanAsian line, actually kind of a unique one because of their deep water torpedoes. Not for everyone, but at the same time, I've heard nothing but good things, and I've dealt with many of these, and they are a pain. So I have heard Gajimata and Hexiang tend to be the more peak of the line, with the Chungmu kind of being a little rough because it's just basically a Fletcher that's got deep water torpedoes and different skills. But it still kind of adds up that they're all pretty decent. They're like, none of these are really bad. So realistically, go all the way up for the Yu Yang. Enjoy the grind. They're all gonna be pretty good. But of course, if you're having a tough time with the deep water torpedoes, maybe stop at 7, 8. See which one you kind of feel better at. But at the same time, Yu Yang, they're dangerous when you run into them. Wouldn't say they're insane, but they're pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. French line. Okay, so kind of a tale of two cities here. So Henry IV, that entire cruiser line, some people like it. I love it. It in my opinion, the grind just kept on getting better and better and better and better and better. But the power difference from tier 8 to tier 9 and or tier 7 to tier 8 is kind of small. It's going to be more of how well you can use the skills as they constantly progress. Where the power difference from 9 to 10 is kind of astronomical. So kind of understand if you're in the St. Louis and be like, man, I just feel like this is a bigger Charles Martel. Trust me, Henry is worth it at that point. But of course, if you're having a tough time early on in the grind, Lag Austin here is a great place to stop. But at the same time, Charles Martel is a pretty solid ship. But you have to understand these are burst machines. You got to start at tier 8, tier 9. You got to start playing these very strategically within the game. You can't kind of just throw HE everywhere. Sometimes you got to throw AP. They're kind of a mixed bag in that. But kind of a completely different story on the Republic line. It's worth it. The Republic is definitely worth it. It's whether or not you can get through certain parts of the grind, depending on if you like it or not. So the Alsace, it's rough. It is. Gascon, I liked it. Not everyone else does. Lion, people use it as a troll ship. It really is one of those things where it's like the tier 10's just so worth it, but the grind is such a mixed bag depending on who you talk to. So understand both these tier 10's are worth it, but it's whether or not you're willing to sacrifice your sanity for them. Italian cruiser line, they're good. If you hate DDs, this is the line for you. Yeah, that's all I can say is that they're amazing cruisers. They do everything that they need to do for what they were built to do. I do believe that the tier 8 and tier 9 need a little bit of buffed. I think they were over nerfed. I think the Venezia is in a really good place right now. It does an amazing job at what it does at tier 10, but it's just you have to understand no HE ship, so it's a little bit more skill based. But when you're in a game with 5 DDs, pretty much you can tell the entire enemy team, hi, I'm your number one target. You don't kill me, you lose. So you can have some fun there. So I'd highly suggest it if you hate DDs and you can play some cruisers without HE. So finally on the last line that's currently out right now, the Pan-European DDs. Basically, this is a hard line to kind of say, is you have to realize these aren't like regular DDs. These are DDs that are meant to last the entire game because they literally can survive that long with how many heals they have. So unlike where the Goliath just dies because it evaporates because it absorbs all the damage and it doesn't have enough health, these things don't have a lot of health, but they have a lot of heals to keep them in the fight overall. Their torpedoes are more about flooding than rather damage, and their guns are more about fires and quick average damage and quick shots rather than doing massive alpha. So in my opinion, Holland, Oost-Jutland, Skane are amazing ships, but you have to understand what lane they fit in. If you don't understand the lane, they're going to suck. You're going to go up and be like, I'm going to blap this battleship, and you're barely going to remove 10k of their health, and you're going to be like, what the crap? No, this is about sending off a torpedo tube and then sending off another not a torpedo tube, but a torpedo rack, and then another one shortly right after, so that basically you get the flood damage and then they heal and then they flood them again, and then you set fires and you slowly let them burn and flood death. Like, these are force multiplier ships. They are excellent ships, but they're just hyper specific. So kind of understand what you're going into and you'll actually enjoy them. I'm enjoying them. And then also at tier 9 and tier 10, they get insane AA, so you can kind of just watch carriers be like, I'm going to focus this DD off the bat. And you're like, nope. But yeah, that's the EU DD line. They're fun, but you just have to know their lane. Hopefully, this guides you in the right path of what ships you want to grind and what ships you maybe are realizing, hey, this isn't a good line, or what's worth to grind even further. I know early on I tried looking for that data all in one video, so hopefully this kind of condenses it all into one clear-cut section for y'all. Hope you have an amazing day. Thank you to the Patreons and all the Discord people on there for making this a blast of a time. Leave comments down below if I'm wrong, or maybe if you think that, hey, maybe someone should end a little bit sooner. Give me your comments down below. Always love to hear from y'all. Have a good one. Peace.